but I've forgotten. I think it was 34. Yeah, the college was created in 34 under the same school board that ran the schools. And they had about 200 students, I think, when they started. But the person that I want to tell you about was their first librarian, Irma Wood, who married Carl Carlson, who was a chemist out at the refinery. And Irma was another delightful librarian, and one gem of a librarian. And in 1937, Irma, at her own cost, went to Virginia to be interviewed by the Carnegie Foundation that was establishing libraries all over the country. And they listened to her, and then when they had their Texas meeting, she, at her own cost again, went to Waco, I believe it was, to talk to the people who came down here. And she was granted $3,000 to start building a college library. So until then, all they had was the books in the high school library. They were still housed together. And that $3,000 was paid over a period of 3 years. But $1,000 a year, that $1,000 bought a lot more books than they do today. It was a generous grant, everybody felt. And she started that college library. Elizabeth Albritton was librarian out there for a while. She was high school, and then she went over to the college for a little while before she went to Laterno Institute up in Longview. I went over to the college from the high school in '55, and at that time the library was housed in one wing of the only building. Well, no, I think they had started the second building by then. I think they had the liberal arts building, but we were still housed in a small area, not a whole lot bigger than this, with a little bit of a balcony back there. And in '55, let's see, I went over there in '55, and in '56, they started a move to get a bond issue passed to build a building for the college library. And we built that building. We moved into it in '57. Building they're still using now. They've about outgrown it again. In '66, we had a devastating fire. Started in the middle of the night in the utility room, or the engine room. The fire people said that it was spontaneous combustion, that obviously some rags had been left in there or something. But the chemistry teachers all said it could not have been because of some circumstances, I don't know. They said it had to have been electrical wiring. But it took us a full year to recover from that. And I swore that if I was ever in another library involved in a fire, I'd pick up my purse and walk away from it. I wouldn't go through that smelly job of trying to clean up and trying to restore it. But we did, successfully. And Bill Peace, who's out there now, told me today that they have a collection of about 75,000 books. When I was there, we had an enrollment of about 900. He said they got up to 4,000 about a year ago, and now they have about, they're expecting 3,000 this year. And he said it's going to make it a little bit easier on the library, because libraries never have enough help to do all the work. You girls know that. But he's real happy with what they're doing, and he said there were plans to enlarge it, but he didn't know now with the economy like it is whether it would be or not. But I hope some of you younger people know why so many of us have devoted so many hours and so much of our energy to providing libraries for this town. I have devoted my life to it. It's been my whole life. It's been a good life. And I'm glad to see all of you again, to be here to thank Flora for what she has done with you.
and she is a mover and shaker. And we're glad that she lived in Baytown in the 1950s and 1960 and became convinced that we needed a city library.
One of the things I want to say is that all the things Eva Ray had to say and Maddie had to say about all of the real good, wonderful people that started this community out here made me feel real good, because I came to Baytown in 1931 and my husband had a store in old Baytown, and I didn't know too many real good people because old Baytown was a real live wire town. It was an unincorporated town, and it was said to be the roughest port on the Gulf Coast and the Atlantic Coast. And I can attest to the fact that there were some rough times went on in Baytown. But my husband had a business, and it was a good business, and I tried to help him in there. And I've heard so many people over all the years, you know, talk about Baytown, and they meant the old Baytown. I'm sure they could have been talking about nice Goose Creek, because I thought Goose Creek was heaven. But I never felt that way about Baytown. I always felt like it was a community that was growing, and that we were going to grow with it. And I feel like that we did. And I think that all the people who stayed in Baytown and brought up their families here, that's what happened to them. They grew with the community. And what a great community we really do have here. And I say we, I don't live here now, but believe me, my heart's here, and I'll always be a Baytonian, really. Anyway, my part in this public library started a long time ago, too. And Eva Ray mentioned Ann McCullough. I knew Ann real well. In fact, she was the one who called me up. And I can remember very well when this happened, because it was in 1934 and I was pregnant, and she called me up and asked me if I wanted to be a member of a book review club. And I said, yes, I sure did. And she said, well, we're going to start one. And so she told me when the meeting was going to be, and so I went to the meeting. And I could barely get through the door, but I went, and that's when we started the book review club in that old little bitty building that we had there. But it was a real good club, and it flourished for many, many years. In fact, it only went out of existence about, I guess 15, 20 years ago. Catherine, you would know, since we both died the same day, wasn't it? About 15 years less than that. Probably less than that. But anyway, Catherine and I were both charter members, and that's how come we know all about it. But anyway, to go back to the library. The public library in Baytown has a long history. It begins back to December 31st, 1925. Now, some of this might be a little repetitious, but I'll try to skip over it lightly. Almost 50 years ago, when former Governor R.S. Sterling donated to the Baytown Library Board, which consisted of the mayor of Baytown, president of the school board, general superintendent of schools, the PTA council president, and the county librarian. He donated a 25 by 33-foot building located on a 50 by 100-foot lot on the corner of Texas Avenue and Jones Street. In the original deed, it was stipulated that if this property was ever to be disposed of, it could only be sold to the Citizens National Bank and Trust Company, and the proceeds must be invested in public library facilities or revert to the Sterling estate. This ultimately proved to be advantageous because when Sterling Municipal Library became a reality, the property was sold to the bank and brought $50,000, which was sort of neat. But back to our story. This small building served as a branch of the County Public Library from 1925, when the population of the three small towns, Baytown had not yet been incorporated at the time, until 1963, when the new Sterling Municipal Library was built. So for almost 40 years, a library facility which services a population of about 3,000 was used for a population of over 40,000. Around 1948, the librarian, the late Mrs. C.T. Shule, approached the late Mr. Hugh Eccles, president of the Citizens Bank, telling him that the library building was in sad need of repair, to say nothing of its woeful lack of books. And it was sad need of repair. It would rain in, like I said, right? And just, you'd have to move this here and that there to keep the books from getting wet. Accordingly, Mr. Eccles contacted a group of people, apprising them of the situation, and these people in turn went out to the various businesses in the community seeking funds. About $3,660 was raised. $1,100 was used for repair and $2,400 to buy additional books. This small group continued to use door-to-door canvassing in its attempt to help the library. And in 1951, a Friends of the Library group was formed with the aid of the AAUW. Membership and patron dues plus book reviews by prominent people made up the income, and this was spent mainly in supplementing additional books to the library. Now, I was on this little group, and this little group consisted of people like Art Drager, some of you remember, Dr. Algie Paget, Julian Spring, Bob Gillette, myself, Reverend Brocker, who was the pastor at the Lutheran Church. I think that was Dean Rundell. I think that was about the group that comprised this little thing. And we'd meet, and we'd talk, and we'd plan, and we'd say we have to do this, and we have to do that. And everybody had a different idea and a different plan. Their goal was the same, but how to reach it was not exactly identical. And we really, truly never got too far. As I'm saying, for 3 years this group met and worked toward acquiring a site and funds to build a new library. But differences of opinion within the group of how this could be done led to almost a complete cessation of effort. In 1957, the League of Women Voters completed a study of the library and its needs and went to the City Planning Commission, which had recently been formed, suggesting a minimum figure of $125,000 for a library to be included in a general city improvement bond issue. This was done, but the library section of the bond issue was defeated. This proved to be a blessing in disguise, as later it was shown to be wholly inadequate. The figure was inadequate. In 1959, now this is where I began to get really hot and bothered about the library. Having been an original member of the 48 to 51 group seeking to improve library facilities in Baytown, I decided that something concrete must be done. Accordingly, first I asked the League of Women Voters to do this, but League of Women Voters cannot touch anything unless it is a local, state, or national governmental problem. So they couldn't touch it. But I, at that time, was a member of the Pilot Club. And I was going to get somebody to touch this no matter what happened. So I was the public affairs chairman. And I brought the matter to the club, asking that it sponsor any effort I might make. This they agreed to do, and I wrote every woman's organization in Baytown the following letter. Still written on my old station, the economy town. The Pilot Club of Baytown is sponsoring an organization to be composed of 2 members from each service club in the community. Seeing the growing need of more adequate facilities for library service, the Pilot Club has undertaken to arouse public interest. Therefore, the purpose of this group will be to promote action for the establishment and maintenance of a city tax-supported public library. This is an invitation to your group to send 2 representatives who will be permanent members to a meeting to be held October the 7th, 1959 at 7:30 p.m. at the Episcopal Parish House. We would appreciate an answer to this invitation at your earliest convenience. Yours very truly, signed, Ms. A. Rosenzweig, Public Affairs Chairman, Pilot Club of Baytown. Now this I did really and truly. The Pilot Club was wonderful to me about this because they sort of gave me carte blanche to see if I could do this. And I just, took the bull by the horns and said, now this has got to be something done, and the best way I know how is to just find out how everybody else feels about it. And we had an awful lot of clubs in Baytown then, like we do now. And we got 100% response, which I think was unbelievable. We really did. Every single club that was sent this, and all of them were sent it, sent 2 representatives. And the idea caught fire. I mean, everybody just was delighted with the idea. And I had brought a whole lot of figures to that meeting. Where did I get those figures? I don't even know. But something about how much it would cost each person if we ever were able to have a tax-supported library. I didn't know how it was going to be done. Who knew anything about that, But I just put out a lot of figures. It sounded good. And they all liked it, I decided, well, it wasn't such a bad idea as that. So anyway, there was an overwhelming response to this letter, and I must say that it was a matter of extreme gratification to me. It showed how much everyone felt the way I did. All the idea needed was a spark to kindle the fire. I read a prepared short speech using some hypothetical figures, but urged the formation of a committee to start working toward our new library. I refused the presidency of the organization, and I think this is one of the reasons why Abe let me do it, because he says, don't you take on another thing. And I knew if I was going to accept the presidency, I couldn't have anything more to do with my husband, and I was very fond of him. So I refused the presidency and nominated Mrs. B.B. Ash as president, and she was unanimously elected. It just happened. She was the president of the League of Women Voters at that time, and that was just real good. The rest is history. Now, here we have the scrapbooks about our library. If you want to really and truly see all of the great things that have been done here and the things that continue to be done, and it's because it tells the story a lot better than I do. I just, as I said, kindle the fire. In summation, let me say that Baytown has a fine library because there were enough people who cared enough to devote hours and hours of work to sell and promote a $300,000 library bond issue. And then this little thing that I've got here written in front of me was written a long time ago. The same I've given this page to other people. You probably, some of you heard it many times before or times. But at the time I gave this, I gave it because that was before we needed more space and we were getting ready for the second improvement in the library. And that's what I said in here. Now we need more space, and it's going to take some more dedicated people to sell and promote a bond issue to increase the present library facilities. Now, this may come again, so take heed. And if it does, there's not but one way to do it, and that's the way it was done in the beginning. Really and truly, everybody in Baytown has been very, very nice to me through the years and given me lots of pats on the back and congratulated me and so forth about what I did for the library. I really didn't do that much for the library. I love this place. I liked it so much I volunteered in it for 15 years for free, and then they got so tired of seeing me they gave me a little pay job. I couldn't stay away from the place, and I think that people who love books and love to read and have an interest in the education of their children, which after all it's books that make the education of the children, are always going to feel the same way that I do about the public library. It is a must. This is a glorious place. It's really fantastic. You bring people here and tell them that this is the type of library that we have in a town of this size, and they are amazed. They really can hardly believe that we have it. So be proud of it, work for it, and support it.
And last but not least, we have Edna Gray, who has many accomplishments on her list. And we're fortunate that one of these is the title, the first president of the Sterling Municipal Library Board.
I'm just glad that 25 years ago we started a very hard job. Now these girls sound like, you know, it was just wonderful, and it was, but we had about 2 or 3 years of awfully hard work. We had, one afternoon, Maddie Howard called me and said, Edna, would you come over here to my office and let's talk about the possibility of trying to get a library started, the effort. And a Methodist minister, and I can't remember his name, can you, Maddie? Anyway, there were about 8 of us met in Maddie's office and began to talk about what it would take to sell the people in this town on the idea of a bond issue. We knew the need, and everyone in Baytown knew that we had a great need for a library. I had been on the school board for 6 years, and was one of those people that was on the board when we had the college under our services. We knew the need was here. It was very great. We started to begin to talk about how to put a bond issue together, and this took a lot of work, and a lot of people donated hours and hours of trying to make the public in our town, make the people aware of the tremendous need. We had a lot of people voted against the bond issue. And at that time, 1960, and so many people said, why do we need another library? It's just going to raise our taxes. We'll just have to pay more. But we all felt that it was worth more of your tax money to provide this service for the children. And I think we think of the library as something the children have to have. Of course, I realize now in Baytown, this library accommodates all the citizenry of Baytown. I feel very proud of that thing, of that effort. We did accomplish the bond issue, and I'll have to say, I had an opportunity to go to Rome to the Olympics in 1960, so I left some of my responsibility to Maddie and this group of people, but they did a fine job of the bond issue selling. When I got home from Rome, after being over there for about 3 weeks, the bond issue had passed and we were ready to go. But we're not quite ready. We had a little static about what we do in the old library, and of course Hugh Eccles bought it as was specified in the deed restriction and had it torn down. We rented a building over on Whiting, and Sally Evans and Hank Blassick, a librarian that we hired, started over this little rented building with trying to establish a book collection. And they worked over there for long and hard and trying to get things really rolling. And we did several of us did quite a lot of visiting other libraries. When we'd be any place away from Baytown, we'd visit the library to see what they had and what it looked like and how much it cost. And we had hopes of building a less expensive building than this, but I'm glad that we didn't do that either. I'm glad we got this lovely building. Lowell Lammers was hired by the city to be the architect. And Lowell said, I'm not going to build a monument to myself, but I want to build something Baytown's going to be proud of in the future, and I think he did. We had many, many days, and all of these people that worked in the library then spent hours and hours helping select furniture and not only just books, but they had so much to do here. As the new building went up, and they put hours of work into helping select furniture and carpet and paint colors, and besides all that, trying to operate the library too. So it was with a great deal of pride, though, that we all worked and watched this building go up. Hank Vlasic stayed with us for about 3 years. And then Fred Tillery came to us. Fred was had been in our school administration. He wasn't a librarian, he was just an administrator. But when Hank left, we had need for supervision of the people who work here and someone to just simply hold the thing together. And Fred Tillery said, I'll do that. So the city paid him just a small fee, and he came over here almost giving his service to help keep this library going till we could find another librarian. And one hot day, truck drove up in front of my house and Flora got out. And she came in and we sat and talked for a long time, and she'd driven over from Orange to talk about this job. And I didn't have any doubt at all that Flora could do the job and do it well, and I think she has more than proved that. Flora, we love and appreciate you so much. Flora came to, had some problems to face when she got here. She did a magnificent job of endearing the people that work here to herself. She had some problems that were not easy to handle, but she handled them. And Flora's had, maybe she would like me to tell you this, but she's gone to City Hall to many council meetings and said, I don't care what you want, I don't care what the fire department wants, I don't care what the street department wants, I want the money for the library. And one time a policeman got up and said, I'd like to tell Ms. Wilhite that there are other things in Baytown besides a library. She never did give up her fight for the library. She's always done that. I guess you're still doing it, aren't you? But with all of the wonderful people that have worked so hard to get this library here, and then the enlargement of it after the initial building, and it's of course been added on to, or some more additions built. But the name of Sterling was chosen because Ross Sterling had given us the very first one, and we felt like that it was the thing to do. And so on a Sunday afternoon in 1963, we had the formal dedication of this building, and Governor Sterling's son was here to accept the honor of opening the building in memory of his father. And so it's been a wonderful story. It's been a story of just one of the things in Baytown that I think we can all as citizens be proud of. We are a very young town. You know, you hear about towns that were here 100 years ago and all this, but many of us, and many of you, I know, worked hard to consolidate the 3 little towns. We were 3 little towns, and you'd have to, if you wanted to call Baytown, you had to go through Goose Creek. If you lived in Pelly, it was something else. If you lived in Old Baytown, they had no city government at all. So it took us 2 tries to consolidate 3 towns. We tried it one time and failed, and we tried the second time, and work the next year. One friend of mine, he was a postmaster in Pelly, said to me, well, why are you working for this? I'm so sorry for the people, how they're going to get their mail. And I said, well, just consolidate this town and Uncle Sam will deliver it to their door. And sure enough, that's what happened. And then a friend in Goose Creek, and I called her from Riverside, this friend in Goose Creek said, if you want to live in a bigger town, why don't you just go to Houston? We were in business in Pelly, and that wasn't the most desirable place to be right then. But I said, don't want to live in the city. We just want a better place to live here. So I think every year, the accomplishments of the people of now Baytown have just been fantastic. We've worked together. We've got a wonderful place. Let me just say this for one, then I'm going to sit down. I asked a young doctor and his wife just recently, I said, why did you choose Baytown? They came here about 3 or 4 years ago from Minnesota to establish a practice. She works at San Jacinto and he is a physician here. And they said, well, we read about Baytown in a medical magazine. We want to live near a big city, but not in it. We want to be near an international airport. We love the climate, coming from Minnesota, you know. And they just couldn't find anything disagreeable about Baytown. And it pleased me so because you hear people complaining so much about the mosquitoes and about the humidity and about this and that you don't like. It makes you feel so good to find somebody who said, we came here, we love it, we wouldn't think of being anywhere else. And that's the way I feel about it. I'm like these ladies, I've been here forever. And I can't think of any other place I'd want to be. Thank you.
And now we come to a fun part of the evening when we ask people from the audience to come up and share with us some of your reminiscences. And the first person I want to call on is the very first employee of the City Library, and that's Sally Evans. Where is Sally? Sally, come up and tell us a little bit about when you were in that house.
I don't have any notes or anything because I hadn't really planned on doing this. I hope they wouldn't call me, but my hopes fell flat. I was called for an interview in August of 1961, late August, to come on Labor Day to a duplex on the corner of Pierce and Whiting for the assistant to the library director who was in Baytown on the field to start the library, which was not even built yet. So I went that day, and I was interviewed on the porch swing on that porch. There was nothing in the building. You talk about being terrified. I didn't know what I was getting into. But anyway, I was interviewed and told to come back the next day. He actually started to work the 1st of September of 1961. And I started on the job on the 6th of September of 1961. And believe you me, when I got there that morning to go to work, he had found from Humboldt Oil and Refining Company a desk and a floor lamp from home, his typewriter from home, and some typing paper and pencils, and we started in. And we ordered all kind of cataloging tools and things to start the library with for him to catalog. We ordered processing materials to process books. We mailed whole catalogs for children's books. We ordered that first. And then I'll never forget when that first shipment of books came in. I never did so many letters in my life, but then when I saw what results was, I couldn't believe it. We got 300 just boxes and boxes of children's books in on the 30th of September, and it was 335 books, which was a shipment of $3,000. And we had nothing to put them on, and boxes after boxes. So we stacked them around the wall, and that was the most exciting thing I've ever done in my life. We wanted to read every one we took out of the box, but he says, we can't do that. We've got to get them out so I can catalog them, and you can start typing them, because we had to process them, we had to cover them, we had to get them ready for the public, we had to put pockets and jackets, box them alphabetically, and get them ready to go on the shelves when the new building got ready. Well, that was just the beginning. We had to walk the sites every day to see how construction was coming along. It didn't matter if it rained, it didn't matter what. We went over there every day. It came over here rather every day. And to see the progress of the building and everything was really, really exciting, and all the things it took to go into building a library and try to visualize when it was going out, what it was going to look like when it got finished. In the meantime, we were still trying to process and type catalog cards and get things ready for the new building. Then we worked that way, and then in May of 1962, we finished the bids for the furnishings, for the shelving, and those were exciting times, seeing the colors of the furniture that was going to be